Hello and welcome to O Worm. Today we'll be dissecting a fetal pig. The reason fetal pigs are so useful for dissections is that they are mammals, and their organs are very similar in anatomy with human organs. Now with the fetal pig, we'll be tying it down to a dissection tray to make sure the legs don't get in the way, like you see these legs doing here. Right now I've tied one pair of legs down and I'm going to do the same to the other one here. So take a string, tie it around one leg, like that, and then just stretch it over and under the dissection tray and then tie it around the other leg. So the first thing we'll be doing with the pig is to classify it as either male or female. Now checking for nipples, or teats, right here, is an easy way to tell you nothing. Both male and female pigs have nipples, just like humans. A better way to tell is to look for the location of the urogenital opening. So in males, it's near the abdominal area right here. So here's the urogenital opening. So this is a male pig. In females, the urogenital opening would be near the anus around here. So this pig is male. So this is the umbilical cord right here. We'll get back to this more later. Now let's look at the structures in the mouth of the pig. Take your scalpel and cut along the corners of the mouth, then open it up. So the soft palate and the hard palate form the roof of the mouth. Here you can see the hard palate, which separates the nasal and oral cavities. It has a lot of ridges and it's very hard, just like its name, because it's supported by bone. Here further down is the soft palate, which aids in swallowing and breathing. It's a lot softer, it's mostly muscle. You can feel your own palates by running your tongue over the roof of your mouth. The part closer to the front of the mouth will be hard, and the part closer to the back will be soft. Not all of the teeth have erupted, but you can see a few teeth here and here. I'll cut open one of the bulges. So these, right here, are some of the teeth that haven't erupted yet. So you can see that there's a tooth here that hasn't fully erupted out of the skin. So now let's take a look at the tongue. The tongue has many bumps on it, here, and these are called the papillae, and contain many microscopic taste buds that help the pig taste its food. You can also see that there's a lot of papillae around the edges of the tongue, so here and here. So now let's take a look at the internal anatomy. With a scalpel, cut a straight line from the chin to the umbilical cord, and then cut around the umbilical cord, and then cut towards the legs. So now if I reflect the skin back, you can see here, this is the umbilical vein, which carries nutrients and oxygen from the umbilical cord here to the fetal pig. So notice that this leads to the liver, right here. Now we're going to cut it through the middle and then we can peel the rest of it back. So now here you can see these three structures. These two thinner structures on the sides are the umbilical arteries, which will eventually lead to the aorta. This thicker structure in the middle is the urinary bladder. And I'm going to cut through this. So now you can see that it's hollow. The urinary bladder is basically a muscular container for urine. So now I'm going to cut the skin horizontally here so we can reflect the skin. So this pig is double injected, which is why you see a lot of blue and red. They inject red latex into the arteries and blue latex into the veins. So now what I've opened up right now is the abdominal cavity. That's the area of the body cavity right below the diaphragm, which is right below the lungs. And this very shiny layer here is called the peritoneum. It lines the abdominal cavity and covers the abdominal organs. It has a few functions. It protects against infection, but it's also really slippery, which allows the abdominal organs to move around smoothly. Your abdominal organs don't move around that much, but they do move a bit. Now I'm going to remove these flaps of skin with scissors. So the liver here, this brown structure, is the largest organ in the abdominal cavity. The liver is a jack of all trades. It does several important jobs in pigs and in humans. This is why liver disease can be so deadly, especially so because the liver's functions are so complex that nobody's been able to invent an artificial substitute, and liver failure can be fatal in days. The liver's main functions are to filter and detoxify blood, make proteins and immune cells, and to make bile. Bile is used to digest lipids. Think of scrubbing a very oily plate. The water will just wash right off the oil unless you have some soap to break up the oil. Bile works similarly in the digestive process, breaking up lipids so that it can be absorbed. And after bile is produced by the liver, it's stored in this small pouch-like structure under the liver called the gallbladder. So you can see it right here. It's this greenish pouch-like structure right here. And the gallbladder releases the bile into the small intestine when needed. So now let's look at the stomach. So over here is the stomach, this whole thing. So this whole pouch-like thing here is the stomach. And this is where food begins to be broken down by acid and by mechanical digestion, i.e. the stomach muscles pummeling the food. So right now this is a fetal pig, so the stomach is mostly full of amniotic fluid and some bile and some mucus. So now below the stomach, here, this banana-shaped structure here is the spleen. The spleen plays an important function in the immune system. You can technically live without it, but the word technically there will tell you that it probably won't be much fun. You'll have to be very careful about infections, because your spleen won't be there to help you fight it off. The spleen also plays a role in breaking down old blood cells. So under all of this is the pancreas, which can be a bit hard to see. So let's try to find it. So it's right here. It's this yellowish spongy structure. So all of this is the pancreas. The pancreas has two main functions: to produce digestive enzymes and to produce hormones. It produces digestive enzymes that help break down food, and also compounds that neutralize the acidic pH from the stomach, and then releases these molecules into the small intestine. It also produces hormones like insulin and releases it into the blood. Pig insulin is actually similar enough to human insulin that it was used to treat diabetes in humans up until the 1980s. A pig pancreas would just be ground up into a slurry and inject it directly into the patient. So now when I put the stomach back, here between the stomach and the spleen, you can see this large membrane coming off of the stomach. So right here, I'll stretch it out a bit. And this is called the greater omentum. And it's a membrane that hangs down from the stomach to cover many of the abdominal organs. So a bit like this. So kind of like an apron over everything. It's sometimes called the policeman of the abdomen because it can adhere to inflamed or diseased organs to protect the healthy organs in the abdomen. So down here is the small intestine, which is all these coiled little tubes. The small intestine is where the breakdown of food is completed and the absorption of nutrients takes place. All the work that the stomach, pancreas, liver, and so on have put in would be for nothing if the body won't be able to actually take the nutrients in. The small intestine is very long to maximize surface area for absorption, and in humans is actually 3 times the length of your body when stretched out. You could probably use it to jump rope. The small intestine is packed tightly and attached to the abdominal wall by something called mesentery tissue, which you can see here. It's this thin film of tissue. Now you can see these streaks of red running through the mesentery tissue. So remember I said red latex is for arteries. So these are all of the blood vessels that supply blood to your intestines, and they're embedded within the mesentery tissue. So here's more. There you go. Now I'm going to move aside the small intestine, and here's the large intestine. So all of this. Let me get my probe. So all this. Note that the large intestine is organized differently in pigs than in humans. In pigs, as you can see here, it's in the shape of a spiral. But in humans, it'll look more like the outline of a rectangle. So it'll look more like this. So the large intestine functions in absorbing excess water. It not only has to absorb the water from the food that you ate, but also the water and all the secretions made by the various digestive organs along the way of digestion. After this, it also stores the waste here in the rectum, right here, until it's ready to be eliminated via the anus. Oh, one thing I want to mention. You can see here, right here, there's a dead end. And this is called the cecum, and it's the part of the large intestine where food gets fermented, especially plant matter. And it's right where the large intestine meets the small intestine. So you can see it's literally a dead end here. Now I'm going to move aside these digestive organs so we can take a look at the kidneys. Okay, so here we go. There's a kidney here, and there's another kidney on the other side here. So if you can see, these kidneys are actually beneath the peritoneum. So we need to just peel this back with a probe. The kidneys are these bean-shaped structures that filters the blood and produces urine. Descending from the kidney, you can see this tube here, and this is the ureter, which transports the urine from the kidneys to the bladder that we saw before, which is right here, which then stores the urine until it's ready for excretion. So now I'm going to cut into the small intestine. Just cut along its length with scissors, like this. Okay, so when I open this up, you can see that the inner lining of the small intestine is very fuzzy. You can see all this fuzz here. This is because the small intestine is lined with tiny finger-like projections called villi, which are in turn lined with tiny hair-like projections called microvilli. Both of these function to increase the surface area in the small intestine so that more nutrients could be absorbed. Now I'm going to cut open the pyloric sphincter. The pyloric sphincter is between the stomach, right here, and the small intestine right here, so this thing. It's this hard bulb of tissue and it's a ring of muscle that basically controls the passage of food materials from the stomach to the small intestine. So just take a pair of scissors and cut it open. So now you can see the pyloric sphincter, and it's this thick band of ring-shaped smooth muscle right here. Thanks for watching part 1 of our pig dissection video. Check out part 2, where we finish the dissection by taking a look at the thoracic cavity and the reproductive systems.